Ah, so annoying. Okay, here we go. Taking his sweet ass time. Okay, cool. So it looks like we are live. Yep, I'm seeing it on my phone. So here we go. Uh, Nobody's in yet. That's cool. Hoping we'll get some people to roll in. Oh, maybe I should notify people on on Threads. Uh, Out Boys Season 4. For a rousing discussion. Should have done this before I started this. It's all good. I'm not good at doing lives. I've only done a few of them. All right, anyway, here we are. So, man, The Boys season 4 is going off. Let's call it what it is. Not that I expected anything less or whatever. Like, this show is basically maintaining, maybe even exceeding its usual quality standards. Production wise, everything looks great. Actually, I didn't really talk about it last on the last live stream, but damn, this show looks great. Um, it like the style of the boys that we've come to expect. It looks great. Everyone is just on their game. You know, shout out to Anthony Starr, who like, why the hell doesn't this guy have an Emmy yet? It's like, if you ever wanted proof that these voting bodies are just like up their ass about genre stuff or whatever, not wanting to give any respect to comic book stuff, it's that Anthony Starr doesn't have an Emmy. Because you can't tell me he hasn't been one of the most compelling, you know, actors playing one of the most compelling characters on TV in the last, 10 years. This being the fourth season, and a lot of the show is built around the fact that Homelander, not just that he's sucking, he's a psychopath and he's got the power to kind of do whatever he wants, and that really the only thing keeping him from, rampaging and basically, controlling the world with his power. The only thing stopping him is essentially his inbuilt need for for people to love him and for adulation, for all of that stuff. So as a result, Anthony Starr gets a lot of good material to work with there. And I was reading an interview with Eric Kripke where he's talking about the show. He's talking about like the creative process and all that stuff. And I mean, we can talk about that later too. That there's a couple of interviews he did that I think are very insightful, not just for people who like talking about process or whatever. I think that they're instructive about, kind of our place and our moment in time and our politics and our culture, and how the writers of this show have a pretty good handle on it. And I mean, if I'm being honest, they're having a pretty easy time of it because, like, if you really think about what's going on in this season, they pretty much are just, well, I mean, they had to think about this well in advance, but a lot of the problems and the issues and the cultural moments that we're sort of dealing with, the political moments, are the same as they were probably a year and a half, 2 years ago when they were writing this. I mean, things haven't changed dramatically in the last couple of years. So, any writer with a reasonable understanding of human nature and society and looking at the world can probably do a Nostradamus and say, "Hey, this is probably what's going to happen." Um, but even so, they do get some kind of things eerily correct. But like I said, it's a little easier on them because they really are just putting capes on our current situation. So because of that, we're getting some really strong stuff for Anthony Starr to do. As the bad guy, as the driving force for why the boys are doing what they're doing. With no Homelander, this show would have a lot less immediacy because I mean, most of the soups are completely killable and easy to corral or whatever, even with their being bulletproof and so forth. Not all of them, but some of them. So because of that, it's really this really is about the contrast or even the comparison between Billy Butcher and Homelander, but also about it's also about who Homelander is as a person, how his childhood trauma fucked him up and made him the absolutely terrible person he is today, and how like most psychopaths, he doesn't see him. He sees himself as the only real person, and everyone else is just kind of an animal to do whatever with. But he's just saying it out loud. So I'm really loving Anthony Starr's portrayal. I think he's doing just absolute career defining work, like to the point where I've gotten people saying like, man, I utterly hate this character. Like I despise him completely, and I love seeing that. So people are really delivering. I think also Jack Quaid is he's really getting some great scenes. Dealing with the his dad being in a coma. In this episode, they're dealing with end of life directives and the fact that basically he's not really there. He's brain dead, and they're taking the feeding tubes out, and then this is a world where there's actually something that can be done about that. And Huey, how far is he willing to go? How far is he willing to go to to heal his father? Is he willing to make a deal with the devil? Or in this case, is he willing to finally give up this thing that he holds over A-Train, which is that A-Train negligently killed his girlfriend at the time, and that as a result, he has a superiority or some kind of moral high ground over A-Train, which is not particularly hard to do because A-Train's been a piece of shit. But also he's clearly there's some good in him. He's like Anakin Skywalker. He's shitty and he's going to keep doing shitty things, but there is good in him, and maybe you can bring it out and actually make him a good person. Who knows? That is another thing Kripke was talking about as far as his, the story going forward for A-Train, which I do love that they're trying to redeem him. So there's all that stuff with Huey. There's a bunch of, Erin Moriarty. I feel like she's been a bit sidelined in this season. Starlight's important, but like there's a lot more going on with other characters. And that, to be fair, Starlight got a really big, feature in season 2 and season 3. And this one, she's taking a bit of a back seat to, what obviously Billy's going through, and also what Frenchie's going through, which is has been really interesting. I think the whole Frenchie thing. What's funny about the whole Frenchie thing is it's the whole gay relationship seems to be a sticking point for certain people, and I'm just like, is that all y'all are getting out of this? The only thing you're getting is that Frenchie likes dudes. Okay, I feel like that's the it's interesting, like it's a part of his character, but the real thing y'all should be keying in on is Dude was literally a hitman. And he wasn't just a hitman that just killed like the target. He killed like men, women, and children. So he wasn't even like one of these supposed assassins that has some, you know, moral standard. Or nah, if he was pointing in somebody's direction, he made it happen. And I imagine he probably made a mess of things. And he's also kind of fucked up for having an intimate personal relationship with the only surviving member of a family that he was ordered to kill. I mean, it's how is he squaring that circle out? You have to ask. It seems pretty messed up. So with all that being said, Frenchie's his moral dilemma coming to a head in this one. um it's finally just been like, I did it, and kill me, take your revenge or whatever, to sort of solidify that, you know, maybe that's the thing. Maybe inhumanity, or the selective humanity, or what have you, of the various characters who get it done, get things done. Maybe that's the issue at hand, because you see it with Kamiko too. She has no problems murdering, the gang member, the traffickers or whatever, but she won't murder her friend that she was in like pit fights or whatever when they were being trafficked. And it's pretty clear that this young lady is now definitely one of the muscle of this rising, or is it rising sun or whatever, shining sun, whatever. It's pretty clear she's the muscle, so she's as much involved with the trafficking they're doing now as anybody else. So, but she won't murder her. And we find out that Kamiko probably was the one that brought her into the whole situation in the first place. So, much like child soldiers can be, pressed into working with these, terrible organizations and being fully functional and dedicated members of them, even as they are themselves being exploited or trafficked or whatever, that sort of thing. So, there's an awful lot of, I don't want to say gray area, but no one's actually a hero in this, um, except possibly Huey. But I don't even know if I want to say that. But there's no heroes in these. There's just people who are trying to do right and people who are trying to do wrong. And in their past, they haven't always been on that same side. So seeing Frenchie essentially just trying to absolve himself by, pushing Colin away, or at least giving him an opportunity to get his revenge with no resistance, is, interesting, but also maybe a bit of a cop out on Frenchie's part, just because he knows he can't absolve himself, and he wants absolution because he doesn't. I don't think he thinks he can have or deserves forgiveness. And even if he got it, would it fill that hole inside of him that's been, created by the fact that he was a killer for hire? Now that may even explain his part in being in, in the boys itself, because, he's a terrible person that's done terrible things, but maybe he can turn that propensity for violence and murder towards doing some good. At least that seems to be the idea. But he can't escape his past and his demons. So beyond that, I mean, you had some interesting things going on with, and we're gonna get to Homelander, because to me he's probably the big part of the episode, even though Firecracker and Starlight and their whole interactions, and the big Firecracker Vought thing was interesting, but Homelander's his entire story in this episode is probably the biggest part, the most interesting. But we do get we do get the whole thing. Let's I guess we can talk about Huey, since he was probably the second or probably the third. His was the third most important. Um, Dealing with his mom and the do not resuscitate. I will, I like that Huey. I mean, he's us. He's out of his depth. We like to think that even if we're out of our depth, we would still go and fight the good fight. I mean, I don't know how true that is. Will we put our lives on the line? Maybe, but Huey does this. He goes to get A Train to work with him, and in the process, the targeting of Kamiko leads to them. He and Kamiko being in an office or a warehouse office building or something and having to fight these people off. And she said, "You got to fight and survive if you want to save your dad." And hey, it's cool to see that when it came down to it, he was scrambling away and not hella effective, but actually when it came down to it, he did have the mettle to go ahead and take out these people, at least one person. So that kind of character development, that's the sort of thing we want to see. You don't always want to see Huey, like the only time he's really been like I'm going to step up and do my thing was last season when he got Temp V, where he had, he wasn't worried for his safety so much to the point where, he put the hurt on or helped put the hurt on Homelander. But seeing him actually, be out there and put himself on the line and still step up and do his thing was cool, even if that stepping up meant, killing a dude in a pretty terrible way, actually. But also, he wants to do the Temp V thing, and Billy warns him against it. So one thing about Huey is he's always, I'd like to think that he is Kripke's stand-in in this show, which I mean it could be, or any other writer's stand-in where he does the right thing after trying all of the wrong things, I guess you could say, and going through all of the mess of trying to get that Temp V, and ultimately listening to Billy when he says, "Hey, that ain't the way forward. You're gonna make things worse. The Temp V doesn't make things better." And I mean, that could be an analogy for all sorts of things. Like that, the thing you think this get rich quick or quick results or miracle drug or any kind of thing like that doesn't, it's not going to necessarily fix the problem. And that accepting that his father's just going to die and he's going to die having not had closure with him is just something he's going to have to live with like other people do. So seeing him walk up to that ledge and walk back, very interesting, and very telling about his character. I do wonder how the hell, well, I guess his mom's a pickpocket or something, because she absolutely took that away from him and then gave, his dad the Temp V. One, okay, I guess you're a klepto. I don't know. You can lift things off of people. But two, how the fuck do you know what that is? How do you know what that was and that you should inject it into that? That could have been, Drano for all you fucking know. I mean, yeah, obviously it's in a little canister, but how did she know, and why would she follow through on it? I'm wondering, I'm asking questions. Like it's her, his mom they're more to her than we think. We'll see. We have Sage, my favorite new character. She's a great addition to this show. I think that it was genius, and I like that Lottie on the Supercast pointed out to me, because I didn't think too deep about or not Supercast. So when we were doing our review of the first 3 episodes, I didn't think too deep about this, but I should have seen this. I feel like it should have been obvious, but when he said like he is, as a villain, kind of playing to a stereotype, the strong, outspoken, smart black woman being a villain in this is not unintentional. And even Kripke said it. It wasn't unintentional that when they were making the character, the idea of making her a black woman, was kind of important too, in a way of sort of, pointing to a stereotype, if you will. But she continues to be an interesting and amazing character in the sense that being the smartest person in the room that no one listens to sucks. And now you suddenly have people listening to you and doing what you say. You can start kind of like making moves. And I had wondered, because she's the smartest woman in the world, or not woman. I see. I'm doing it. Smartest person in the world. How does she feel about her position as being the smartest person in the world and being a black woman at the same time? Obviously, it annoys her that no one listens to her because she's black and a woman. But it also, makes me wonder, like, well, how much does all of that play into your understanding of the world and how you interact with it? And so the whole scene between her and Firecracker, in which, Firecracker is doing what she says, but she still, she, of all of the people on the Seven, she's the least fucking qualified person to be on the Seven. Like, without a doubt, the least qualified. And she's literally, like, if you want to talk about a, diversity hire, Firecracker's it. She's literally there just to appeal to a certain demographic. And I understand the Seven is composed that way anyway, but she's literally there to double down on the far right, far right, conspiracy minded, sort of demographic. That she's a demagogue. She's all, but she's the least qualified in terms of her powers and her competence at being a hero at all. Her competence is right wing grifting and ginning up, hate and anger among the base, and having honestly, a really good understanding of her audience. So, but she even knowing she has to explicitly listen to Sage per Homelander's, orders. It's pretty clear. Even Homelander's listening to her. So even that, knowing she has to listen to her, actually listening to her, she still feels like she's better than Sage. She's clearly dumber than her. She's not as smart, not as capable. She doesn't have the power, but she still feels she's superior to her. So when she says this whole, "I thought you were uppity," and then she said, but actually, once Sage was helping her, going along with her line and helping her, do what she needs to do, she's like, "Oh, actually, you're one of the good ones." And as a black person, I laughed my ass off at that whole exchange, because you could see Sage, how she took it and how the gears were rolling in her head. And because she's so smart, took no time at all to formulate a way to put this woman in her place, because that's what had to happen. Sage is number 2 on the team. She would be number 1 if she had any real powers, but her powers is her mind. But she's number 2 on the team, and it was a little bit of a get back for her, which you see later on in the episode, where she gives Firecracker that important information, which is the medical records about the abortion that Annie, aka Starlight, had. But the get back was, and you even saw it, she was like, she's like, uppity. She's like, "Who's uppity now?" I loved it when, Starlight proceeded to beat Firecracker like she stole something. And so kind of seeing how capable Sage is was pretty beautiful. And, I was happy to just see her be like, yeah, bitch, I got you. As I noted, she playing her ops against each other, which Firecracker is her op. And I wanted to know, was Sage, how black are they really making Sage? How aware of her situation are they really making her? what's she going to do when confronted with the fact that she is very much propping up Firecracker, who, whose base, if they had their way, would, do without Sage or it would get rid of her or whatever. So it was interesting to see that. Welcome. I see somebody jumped in. I don't know if you're in the chat. Say something in the chat. But yeah, I like that about that Sage is, she's playing, as we like to say, 3D chess, and everybody else is playing checkers up in this piece. And seeing it play out in real time, where she makes a split cell. She had the info, but I don't believe that she was actually going to put the info into Firecracker's hands. But she saw an opportunity to both hit her and also to deal with Starlight. So it was pretty great, actually. But also seeing the fact that her superpower sucks. There's a lot, Homelander seems to be the only person whose superpower, or I mean, there are other people, but he seems to be the only one whose superpower doesn't suck or have some kind of drawback or something like that, or just be, nerfed to hell. But her, her power is, she's a bit of a Reed Richards in the sense that probably her superpower is it's good, but it's also a bit detrimental in the sense that her brain doesn't stop growing. So, and it also means that she probably thinks way too much, and it gets too much, and she just can't deal with probably the stress levels that come with being so smart that pretty much everything and how everything's going to go. And so in order to sort of decompress or not have that weigh on her, she lobotomizes herself, which I feel like I saw someone mention that on Threads or something like that. But yeah, she's lobotomizing herself in order to just be regular for, as she said, not be herself for a couple of hours. And bringing deep into that's interesting. Like, it's pretty clear that Sage, as her regular self, thinks Deep is just so beneath her, and he's an idiot and everything like that. But I think she also recognizes an actual, like, base level attraction to him. And so in order to, like, facilitate that and just have some normal relations with people, she shows him how to lobotomize herself, which adds another weird kink. Like, does this show need more weird kinks to it? I feel like every season they're like, how can we add something else? Like, we had a guy get tiny and go into another guy's penis and kill him accidentally that way. What other, we got Homelander and his breast milk thing. What else can we do that really will just kind of up the ante? Like, somehow they figured they haven't added feet or furries to this thing, but lobotomizing, recreational lobotomies, that's a new one. But I think, as Sage, obviously she's looking for, who might be the leak in the tower. Will she find it, and will she be the one that, literally puts A-Train on blast and gets him killed? Probably. Which, if that does happen, it makes sense within the story, but also is an interesting commentary, I think, on how, black people, pygmies, as I like to call the pygmies, are often used to, either legitimize, toxic anti-blackness or, or any other kind of ideologies, but also they are used to safely take down other, prominent or powerful black figures. And it's safe because it's just two black people going at each other, right? As opposed to whoever sent them. So I'll be interested to see that if that happens. We also have A-Train. Speaking of A-Train, so A-Train sucks. Like, he does, but it's an intentional thing on the part of Kripke and the writers to try to redeem him as a character, which they've been flirting with that for like two seasons now. He gets better, or he acts like he's got a heart or some kind of understanding of how shitty he's being. Takes a few steps down the good road, then backtracks when as soon as it becomes clear it's going to be dangerous to his physical or you know financial well-being, his status in the world. So he's constantly like fucking up the whole redemption arc. And so maybe this season he's finally going to do it because he lost everything I think that was important to him, which is not his position on the seven, but he lost his brother and his family. His family's is gone because of the actions in season 3. And so here in season 4, maybe he's hit rock bottom and now he actually does want to work with the boys and to try to be the inside man, even though it probably is going to lead to him dying. So seeing him actually follow through, not because he's being, he's not being, blackmailed or anything, but actually trying to pay the debt to Huey was interesting to me. Now, it's not a huge part of this episode, but him getting to kind of really see, he knows Homelander's homicidal and a crazy person, but getting to see what exactly is about him is, that the breast milk, the keeping the gray pubic hair thing. Obviously, he still, for whatever reason, he still has pictures of that damn Stormfront, which is crazy. Is he really still pining for Stormfront? But also, he obviously he's keeping the V. But seeing Ashley in the most aggressive way possible, leaving a turd in there. But now they both understand each other. Are they going to team up? Fuck no. I want to say yes, but Ashley is spineless, and A-Train is being set up, I think, to be a sacrificial figure. And so I say fuck no. Ashley is going to sell him out fast as hell. But in the meantime, they both sort of have something over each other, and it's possible that they can either pretend to work together or use it to undermine somebody else. Who knows? I wonder if Sage has gamed out, she probably has, but gamed out the possibility of betrayals amongst them. And Ashley, I think, is probably the one she thinks is most likely to betray, even though it would be stupid as hell to do. Well, we'll see. I was talking earlier about Frenchie and his, fucked up connection with Colin. I also was talking about Kimiko. I wonder if they can help each other, honestly. I wonder, because right now they are the couple on the squad that we think should be together, and yet they are off doing their own things. I'm hoping in the last few episodes they'll come back together. So we got to talk about Starlight. And she comes into this episode pretty powerful. Not obviously she's got her superpowers, but powerful politically. The whole Starlight, actually becoming a public hero again. That's one thing. And realizing, all right, I have power. Let me use it for political purposes to do something good, which in this case is trying to take down Vought. And she aligns herself with Singer, who's trying to be president. Is apparently looks like he's going to be. And again, 3D chess is being played, so she's really, I guess you could call her a knight who's being, or even a queen that's being maneuvered into making a mistake. And that because she's ultimately she's human, and she believes certain things about the world that aren't true. She believes that there's security and privacy in her medical records. She believes that that firecracker, people are good and they're not necessarily going to listen to her. and for whatever reason, she doesn't, but she thinks that somehow being forthright and, upfront and all that other stuff and being like, a hero is going to keep Vought from doing a full court press against her. And of course, this is an allegory. I sort of liken her to Hillary Clinton, but it's not quite the same. But she's definitely, any left wing, political or celebrity figure who dares to take any kind of stand against right wing things. And when I add that because we recently had this whole bullshit about someone from is a National Review or a Federalist, somebody who had a dumbass take against Dolly Parton, talking shit about her, talking shit about Taylor Swift, always talking shit about and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's Hillary Clinton, for whatever reason, she's clearly never going to be president, but because she's still politically active, she is a favorite target also. Basically, Starlight is the stand-in for those people. And as a result, Starlight's naivete, and which is weird because she was part of the Vought machine. So it's weird that she's so naive about it, to not think that they wouldn't literally just, because it's nothing. Vought's the biggest corporation in the world. They got mad money, and they're being run by, two soups who are definitely trying to get rid of any opposition to their eventual, superheroes running the world, whole program. So the full might and force of one of the greatest media empires in the history of the world, probably actually in this world, I suppose it's the greatest, are of course going to be turned against her. And I love that they essentially, the whole thing with, Firecracker and her anti-Starlighter campaign, and it turns into this big to-do, this big production, and there's literally nobody out there. Like, they're across the street because they're trolling. They're definitely trolling and trying to get a reaction. They could have set that thing up anywhere, but they're like, we're across, we're going to save all the kids from Starlight, who's grooming and blah blah blah. And it comes to, eventually it's essentially to trigger and to cause Starlight to get out there and do something that will hurt her credibility, or at least give them ammo to continuously, beat a drum about how she's terrible, and anyone who supports her is terrible, and anyone she's associated with is terrible, etc. And it works. I mean, because Annie's not. I mean, she's naive. The thing is, the whole talking about. I like that they talk about the whole abortion issue, and it's just like, it's a personal thing. I thought about it hard, and I needed it. I needed to do this for our own good. But nobody gives a fuck about that because it's a reductive topic. It just is. Because people that for whom it has no personal, like, people who are against abortion, they can be for it for many reasons. It could be, religious, ideological. Ideological in the sense that, maybe they do really think all life is precious, which is ironic because they don't actually think that. They don't actually think all human life is precious, but that's the most safe. That's that unformed, not made person yet is easy to advocate for, because it's like advocating for not kicking puppies, essentially, because they're small and vulnerable, and but no one has a problem with kicking rabid dogs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very easy. But you can be the pro-life movement is full of people who have many reasons for it, and some of the reasons are simply practical, in terms of controlling the way people act, controlling women's bodies. Some of them are religious, and that does overlap with what I just said. Some of them, people just really don't like the idea of killing what they consider to be a human being, or at least one that potentially could be. And so it's a very easy thing to demonize someone for, especially when you don't have skin in the game. So, that whole aspect of it also means that people, when they make it such a simple issue, that they can very easily just be like, no, it's never right no matter what. And they won't ever change on that until they're in a situation where actually it does personally affect them. So it's very easy for people to have these zero tolerance or black and white thoughts on it or a stance on it when they're not personally having to make the decision. And you can't. I mean, how do you communicate in a soundbite the agonizing decision to actually do this thing? You can't, which is why, the anti-abortion movement is it's so easily soundbitey. It really is, because you can just reduce a very complex issue into a soundbite, whereas actually explaining the way you go about making that decision is very difficult. So, and of course, Starlight just says, she is upset and that her privacy's been violated, and the target of her ire, which she's already kind of pissed off at Firecracker anyway for her months long campaign about calling her a groomer and all these accusations. So of course, and Huey's not there, so he can't help her think straight and stop what's going down. And so Firecracker gets a well-deserved ass whooping. Cool. Except she does it on national TV and gives her enemies all of the ammo they need, which sucks. But also, I will argue, does it really fucking matter? And I mean that in this sense. So in this same situation, Billy and Mother's Milk go and get information, devastating information, should be devastating information for someone whose entire campaign against Starlight is about grooming and, allegations of underage things and all this. I mean, you get like, that's their entire, the whole QAnon thing. So you would think that having information that, she's accusing Starlight based on her animosity against her, and just that, anyone who's doing good, they have an angle, and actually, this is a child trafficking ring, and it's a bunch of accusations with no proof, and just playing into what the people that agree with her really want to believe. Okay. So there's that, and there's actual proof, actual for real though proof, a Firecracker doing the thing she's accusing someone else of. And that she's able to just be like, God sent that kid. So, mind you, she says it was, I was tempted and I fell into lust, and, he was a sweet boy. And so, first of all, if she had been a guy, it wouldn't have went down like that. But what's that? Whatever. Let's just go with it the way it is. She literally says God sent this boy to her so that she could learn and learn about his glory. So she literally makes it that it was God's will. God literally was like, I need you to have sex with this 15-year-old when you're in your 20s in order so that you can learn. And I'm like, well, that's a shitty, God, that's a shitty thing to do. But two, the other thing that to underscore here is that, because this is our world with capes, this is another one of those I can murder someone and I would get off situations, kind of like with Homelander. But it underscores something very important that I fucking wish people would understand about politics, in particular, our moment in politics, or moment. It's been going on for 20 years now, but our time in politics right now, which is ideological consistency is fucking irrelevant. And you have to understand that being consistent with your supposed morals or values or the rules that you have set up is not fucking important. I mean, at least it's not important to one side of the political spectrum, because rules are being changed. Rules that have been set up before are being changed in order to make sure that Donald Trump is, on the ballot somewhere, or that the state party can support him. Rules are being, normal things that what other people aren't allowed to do, he can do, or GOP members can do. Right? Corruption, or, having improper relations, or, lying, just, making things up. None of that matters. That's which is, I need people to understand that this is what they're saying in this. She sends the tweet herself about her situation because she knows that it's not important that the person saying the message be, consistent. It's not important that they be consistent with the message that they're sending. It's important that the messenger is capable of fighting and possibly winning against their, against their audience's enemies. That's all that matters. This is what I'm saying. Power for the sake of power and by any means necessary. And if they have to, look, let me say, how about this? I'm convinced, and they could do this in the show too, but if they had Jeffrey Epstein be a, Epstein is a byword in the QAnon, movement or whatever. It's a byword on left and right to essentially smear anybody ever. You throw Epstein in there, bam, instant point scored. But I guarantee you, Jeffrey Epstein were like one of the Koch brothers. They, he would, they would defend this guy because he's pulling in the same direction as they are. They're all invested in this worldview and in this political, ideology. So when Firecracker gets exposed, it doesn't fucking matter, because her being ideologically consistent, her, if it was the other way, if Starlight had been on the other side, Vought would have, tarred and feathered her and blasted it for years on end. But for Firecracker, it's a moment and then it moves on, because the people that she is catering to don't care about whether or not she's consistent with the values she says she espouses. They are more concerned that she is fighting the good fight against Starlight and that she could possibly win. That's it. So that whole bombshell failing to be useful is not a surprise, and she wasn't surprised by it. It's weird to me that Mother's Milk and Billy were surprised by that. So I kind of look at that whole situation as like, this is literally just, let's put capes on a situation that sucks and we'll expose it. And it won't do anything. That's my thing is, that's great, but it's one of those situations where I know that the target audience, first of all, who the fuck is the target audience? People who already agree with that? Okay, great. You already agree with it. You're not changing any minds. The people who don't agree with it don't even fucking see themselves. They don't see themselves in it. If they are self-aware enough to see themselves in it, all they'll say is, because we've seen this happen in real life, where you list the crimes or the accusations about somebody and then say it's Biden, they're like, oh, he's unfit for presidency, he should be locked up. And it's like, well, actually that's Trump. They're like, well, I mean, it was probably just, it's just a mistake and he's moved. See, it's where we're at in this world. I just want people to understand that that's the way things are. So there won't be any more of this when they go low, we go high bullshit. That's not, you can debate the principles and how you stick to them, and we should hold ourselves to a certain standard. You can debate that at two times. One, when both sides have agreed to sort of abide by that the standard of consistency, or when one side's won and can sit back and look back after having won and done whatever they needed to, and be like, you know what, we should have been more consistent with our own values, and in the future, that's the way to go. But one side can't sit here and live in this fucking dreamland where ideological consistency matters or moral consistency matters, while the other side is just like, we don't give a fuck what happens. As long as we win, that's what matters. Ideological consistency, moral consistency, who gives a fuck about that? Power, that's what matters. And that's why Billy and Mother's Milk and Starlight were caught off guard and for the situation. And it really kind of comes down to the fact that then he even sends Frenchie to go look into it. Welcome whoever just joined. Thank you. Hope you say something in the chat. If you do, I will shout you out. But this is really why Frenchie and was sent to sort of toss her her trailer, was because if you can't beat someone at the hypocrisy game, how much deeper and darker do you have to go? Unfortunately, Billy is okay with that. It does lead to some very fun stuff, and also leads me to talk about Billy Butcher and his whole situation, which is, does he still have powers? Because I feel like they're saying that he still has powers. Either that or someone put some TNT inside of Ezekiel, because that motherfucker was blown up into bits. And shout out to the special effects people in that particular one. The set dressing, beautiful. It's, there must have been a ton of what's that fake blood, all, the chocolate syrup that's red, all over that place. Because, obviously, yeah, Carl Urban, he's just draped in the stuff. But seeing the skin and obviously prosthetic stuff all over the place, beautiful. And also keeping very much with the way The Boys is. It if The Boys, it's like they were like, hey, what if a Friday the 13th, but it's funny, or in terms of the gore. So I like the set dressing quite a lot in that. But also the implication of what it is, because we've been seeing, I don't know if y'all noticed in the previous episodes, whenever he would see his ex-wife, you get this weird little worm thing going on his hand or his head or something like that. And in this one, we saw it kind of, when he was in the shower and it was crawling around in his back, and then he sees her. So I'm just like, is that a parasite? What is, we're not crazy. The camera is seeing something. What is that? But it showed up when he's, getting choked by Ezekiel, which I do wonder, why is Ezekiel, the plot armor here is ridiculous, because he should have just popped his head off, but whatever. Ezekiel getting, killed in that situation was very, when he blacks out and he kills him. So I wonder if kind of the side effect of this Temp V, it's not cancer, but whatever tumor that's killing him, I wonder if the side effect isn't that he gets some sort of, sympathetic power or whatever that affects other soups, and he just doesn't know it, which makes sense to me, because why would you know this? Why would you know that Temp V does this to people? Because most people don't take it to the point of it being fatal, of a fatal final dose. And it may even be because he admits to Huey later on that he actually took another dose hoping it would cure him, but it just sped up the whole process. So I'm wondering if it's that final dose that kind of gave him this power. If it's true, and I think they're setting this up as a power, probably that's going to be kind of the solution to the Homelander problem. But Billy doesn't know about this power yet. How do you, first of all, how do you use it? How do you test it? You know, who are you going to test it on before you can take it to Homelander? Because it's got to be an actual silver bullet when it gets to Homelander. So I'm curious about that. But you know, Billy's whole deal. It's weird saying, you know, because he comes in as sort of a, you guys are fucking everything up. Let's, you know, let me do what I do, make things happen. We're gonna solve this damn problem. And he fails. He fails in this episode pretty hard. And it feels like he's not just out of step, but maybe a bit of a dinosaur because the rules have changed a lot. I mean, the rules about getting in there and putting the foot up the ass, that hasn't changed. But a lot of what Billy does is not having to get to that point, or at least setting it up so that when it's time to kick ass or murder, you know, he's sort of got plausible deniability. He's covered his bases, or he's more or less said, hey, you know, be reasonable or that's your ass. So it seems to me like he is not just out of step. His tactics are a bit as a dinosaur. And that's bad because we're sort of about at the end game of this show. And much like Game of Thrones, bad guys are kicking ass and taking names right now. And it's, you know, that's just to make us just feel like, man, how the fuck are they going to win? That's a good question. How are they going to win? I want to see more of that power, though. It's very, very good, very interesting stuff. I also did like him asking, I liked him asking not Butcher, Mother's Milk too. Kind of be Godfather or whatever to Ryan. How, I mean, hopefully Ryan, he's like, make him come with you. I'm like, make him come with you? How does that work? Is that's like saying, well, you know, make that hippopotamus. Go over there and make that hippopotamus, you know, do what you say. Sure, it sounds good. But maybe not so much because Ryan's a good kid. So that gets down to our, you know, Billy's whole thing. That was important and everything. But I think obviously Homelander's the most important part of the episode. Jeez, he's the most petty motherfucker possible. Which I'm not even gonna give him too much shit about it. I mean, he's not a test tube baby. We find out in this episode that actually he was born. He wasn't born. He was not a, you know, he wasn't born in a petri dish. He may have been conceived in a petri dish, but he was born to a woman that he murdered. So he's had laser eyes since he was born, but he killed her coming out, and they basically like, we're fucked. You know, we've created the worst possible monster. And so they essentially, you know, raised him in a facility. And we knew that before. But this was the episode where as he was trying to get rid of love, his need for love in himself. And in so doing, returns to the lab where he was born. Or not born, but where he was raised. And proceeds to terrorize two people that were part of his upbringing, a bunch that had not a fuck thing to do with anything, but are just going to be collateral damage. Because you know, as soon as he shows up and they're like, oh, the security camera's dead, you know for sure there's dead people upstairs. And he's coming down, and he comes in with like an ice cream cake and everything like that. And he's also being super nice or trying to be normal. And my God, I said Anthony Starr should get an Emmy, but fuck me, it is so hard to watch him on screen. I think I'd said on Threads, it's like watching people be in a cage with a rabid lion and try to act, just be normal and go about your normal business. while the lion's over there looking at you and licking its lips. It's fucking crazy. Like the whole thing is crazy and stressful as shit. I was stress sweating because of what was going on. Um, but you get to see him essentially enact his revenge against two people who wronged him, who he had long memories of. I was wondering if he had, his superpower was that he never forgot things. But some people on threads, and thank you people for letting me know this. I didn't know this, but apparently trauma memories can either be repressed or remembered in, a real serious, like minute detail. And so him recounting the things that he remembered about them, the fact that Frank, was they were sitting and essentially torturing him as a kid, trying to find out how much heat he could deal with in a room specifically meant to test that, and saying like, yeah, you guys were just like, you were shooting this thing at the paper, at the waste paper basket while I was being tortured. And yeah, it was torture because even though I wasn't hurt, it never ever hurt me. It hurt, it didn't physically damage me, but it did hurt because I could feel it. And I just remember, you shoot, and then, proceeding to, the guy says the wrong thing is like, I was just doing my job. And then he puts him in the chamber and burns him to a crisp. But that going from, oh, I'm a nice guy to like, oh, I'm actually going to kill you right now. I'm going to take this out. I remember this for years. I've waited for this moment, and I'm going to absolutely murder you. And I even said like, you go into this thing or your whole family goes. So he's clearly a psychopath that he can follow through. But so he remembered that grievance, and he remembered the grievance he had against Marty, who basically shamed him about masturbating, which, let me say, that's not like, there's probably plenty of people who had someone make fun of them for that shit. Plenty of people. They've heard that. But he called him Squirt because, he caught him masturbating once. And the whole time he's held on to this for like decades. And then, proceeds to, make the guy pull his dick out and try to masturbate, and then lasers it. And, just to get, and this is that sort of, man, I was bullied, and if I, one day when I'm bigger and stronger, I'm going to get my revenge. But he literally is bigger and stronger, and he's never let it go. Like I said, petty. Like, because when you think about it, the thing is, it's petty in the sense that his internal reasoning or in his mind, he's getting them back for, he's getting Marty back for making fun of him masturbating. And he's getting Frank back for just like casually doing just being like real casual about something unimportant while this kid is screaming and torturing, and screaming and crying, and his tears are being vaporized by how hot it is. So, he's getting them back for that, but what he's really, getting them back for is essentially that he had a horrible, tortured upbringing, and this was perpetrated on him by other human beings who theoretically are normal and have normal, feelings, normal human feelings, but didn't see him as enough of a person, an actual person, to extend humanity to him. Which kind of goes into this idea that Homelander has, that he is not human, that he's actually something better than human. Welcome, somebody. I see you in the chat or in the channel. I hope you say something, but chime in if you have a question. But my point here is that this is all about him dealing with his humanity. He thinks humanity is a weakness. And in a sense, for him it is. because, as Barbara, who is the director of that lab, had to say, they knew they created a monster in their minds. They were scared of him from the beginning and didn't know how to deal with him, how to control him, right? He's too powerful. What are we going to do when he gets older and can think? He's not a baby. And so they purposely build in this intense need, like a deep seated need for attention, for approval, for love. It is like, the worst complex you could, and it's intentionally put into him as a means of control. And in a sense, this sort of happens with people in general. Your attachment to your parents, your attachment to your family, but it's healthy, in that way. It can be made unhealthy by certain, bad actors or people that are just traumatized, also enacting trauma on somebody else. That sort of thing can happen. But this was intentionally inflicted upon him, and he wants to get rid of it. He wants to excise it from his character so that he can become the God that he thinks he is. And he's, again, insisting, I'm not human. Well, if he really wasn't human, this would be no big deal. All right, I don't need love no more. I'm not human. What the fuck? Love? Fuck love. I'm a god. Fuck I need love for? And he will move on with enacting his plan. But he is all too human because for all his power, he can't undo the upbringing that made him who he is today. And he proves it in this episode by going through with enacting revenge against these two men and then proceeding to in order to show that, oh, actually, no, I'm not human. I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to murder all these people in front of you and leave you there to, regret that. That's human too. Revenge is human, right? Trying to get back. That's human. He's never not going to be human. He may be a really strong and powerful one and a petty one, and one that has, he's thick-skinned physically, but not mentally. But that's human. So it's a lie he's telling himself that he is not a human being. Because if he truly weren't a human being, he would be able to be the complete psychopath that he's trying to portray himself to be. And so his quest to be free of love, at least now, is a complete failure, because the place that built into him this problem that he perceives can't undo it, and killing everybody ain't gonna make anything better. And again, he's petty, but he's so fucking petty that he leaves this woman alive. This woman that probably is the most responsible for all this shit. I mean, yeah, she was high up, so she wasn't day to day fucking with him, but she's the most responsible. She signed off. She signed the checks. She got the reports. She saw what was going on. She wanted to mold him into a weapon. She wanted to mold him into this person that he is today. And so he leaves her, probably with the understanding, I can come back and do this anytime. But you notice she wasn't as impressed or scared of him. She just wanted her people to not die. But once she realized he's on that mode, all right, write it off and moving forward. And really, you have to ask, is that, who is the really inhuman person here? Is it Barbara? Is it Homelander? Is it, and I'd say neither of them, but only in this sense that humans all have the capacity to dehumanize other people. It's just true. That's what makes atrocities possible. What they did to Homelander, and mind you, this is giving you sympathy for Homelander. He sucks. He's one of the worst villains that's ever been presented in popular media, possibly in literature or anything ever. He sucks. He's the worst. You hate him. Can't wait till he gets taken out. All of that stuff, right? All that being said, the things that were done to him were horrific. and terrible. And the people that perpetrated them against him are similarly terrible people. And they can only do that because they dehumanized him because he was different from the outset. They didn't see him as a baby that needs love and affection, and they didn't see him as that. They saw him as a baby monster that maybe they could put a collar on, that maybe they could point that monstrosity at their enemies. And that is something that a lot of people, a lot of things, there's a lot of thinking like that around the world, that you can tame, at least tame this beast, that you can, you can take a monster or take a beast or take whatever, you can take this whirlwind and saddle it and you can ride it. Or the better analogy, if you've ever heard of it, is, riding on the back of a tiger. Well, they got this tiger, they jumped on the back of it, and he was doing what they wanted. But at some point, you have to get off the tiger. And that's their problem, is now that they've gotten off the tiger, he is definitely ready to turn around and be like, I don't really care for that riding on my back. And I'm bigger and stronger than you. And so we'll see. Woke AF. Welcome. Thank you for chiming in, and thanks for joining this chat. Let's see. What bothers me is, why would this place Vault not build in better fail-safe mechanisms? I mean, the comic twist was done, but at least Vault was being proactive in their own protection. That's true. I think the problem, or at least the deal is unintentionally making an uncontrollable soup. See, the science, it seems sciencey, but you notice that they never know what any of the soups are going to get. When you get, when you get exposed as a child to, what is it called? Compound V. When you get exposed to it, it's a crapshoot. What they don't say, I think they mentioned, but they didn't really get to it. It killed a bunch of kids too. So some people reject it. Some people get it and they get dope ass powers. And some people get stupid powers. That's what that whole little facility was for. So what they were trying to do was take out the whole hit or miss aspect of it by taking their best superhero and kind of like genetically trying to engineer the peak superhero. And in so doing, they fucked around and made an uncontrollable monster. So all of the other soups that are born, like Annie and Sage, they didn't get they got cool powers, but they didn't get like god powers. I mean, Starlight, I guess, but she's got weaknesses or whatever. And so they essentially made Superman with no kryptonite, and so they had to make it a mental kryptonite, because where the mind goes, the body will follow, theoretically. And so building in this crippling, debilitating need was their failsafe. And to be perfectly honest, it's fucking smart. Look, we know a shit ton about our physical bodies. Our understanding of our brains is minimal. We're scratching the surface. If understanding our physical bodies, our muscles, our enzymes, our DNA, if that is digging a hole, we've dug a pretty sizable hole into the ground, right? If understanding how our brains actually work was digging a hole, we are little kids scratching around in a sandbox right now. So, the best they could do was fuck around with his mind. But how do you stop a kid that can't be killed? They couldn't burn him to death. There was no heat that they could make that could kill him. Remember they were they're testing out everything. How do you hurt this person? to control them. So it seems to me like this is a fuck around and find out moment where their idea, or it's really is more of a, as Jeff Goldblum said, the fact that you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something, and they never think about that. Hope Sage's arc goes to a logical conclusion. She uses that big brain to protect herself. I think that ultimately her plan is going to fail, and he's going to kill her. But I don't think it's going to fail because she's not smart enough. I think it's going to fail because for all of her smarts and everything like that, and gaming everything out, it doesn't factor in there. I mean, there's random shit that happens. That's just in the world. We've seen throughout history that things like weather or, where the clouds are, shit like that can fuck up a perfectly good plan. And for all of her smarts, for all of her intelligence, and her ability to play out the game as far as she can, I think that it doesn't account for randomness and unforeseen events. And when it's fine, look, if there was an army of her, this shit would be over and done with. But it's one of her counting on not smart people to execute the plan. And so she's not just managing her enemies, the enemies of Homelander. She's managing the stupidity of the people that are around her. And how do you do that? It's what do they call it? Game theory? How do you predict what everyone around you is going to do? Not just Homelander, not just Deep or A-Train, the social media manager for Vought, the security people, right? Because those are the weak links. And how do you secure your fortress against these weak links? And you can't successfully know what they're going to do. I think she's going to die, though. I love Sage, too. I'm going to say that straight out. I think she's a dope-ass character. I love that they put her in. I forget, Susan Hayward, I think, is the actress. Kicking ass. Let's see. Sage should be Homelander's Lex Luthor. That would piss off the right-wing trolls. But she is. It's a build a super suit. I mean, yeah, but I mean, I think she has her super suit in this Homelander. As long as he's around, but also the mystique of Homelander, I think keeps her there. I will also say there's a bit of plot armor going on here. There's a lot of plot armor that's inherent in this show. I often think about Scott Evil saying, look, I'll just get a gun, we'll shoot him, be done with. That literally is the answer to most of the problem in this, except Homelander. Obviously, there's no kryptonite for him. But if Sage is the smartest person on Earth, and she's running, she's doing the planning and execution of this thing, fucking kill her. She already said she can't be, she can be killed normally. She's not bulletproof, right? Just fucking shoot her. But yeah, you can honestly, if they really wanted to, but he wouldn't do it. A-Train is perfectly suited for that, even though I do think that it's a Batman deal where she sort of has an idea of how to deal with him. Like, the only person she doesn't know how to deal with is Homelander. But I mean, building a super suit, that would be cool. My only thing about that is that in the world of the boys, it seems like hours. So they don't have dope ass, super engineering like Lex Luthor had that let him have some kind of an ability to fight Superman. I mean, if that were the case, they'd have built a suit that could deal with Homelander. She's played Dina Pilgrim in Powers. Real? Oh man, I always intended to watch that. Actually, that didn't. Is that like 6-7 years old, something like that? I feel like that's the case. It's an old Apple TV show based on the Bendis comic series. She's suited to superhero stuff, I guess. I don't really know her. I have to be honest, I don't recognize her. I'm interested in seeing what she's been in up to this point, because if that's the case, shit, I need to see Powers and see what's up. But she's absolutely she's killing it. Absolutely, I mean, every season of this show adds new people to it. But she's probably the strongest new character they've put into the show, and I love the intentionality of it. I love that Kripke very specific. Like he was talking about it. I don't know if you saw this interviews he done. If you haven't, I think it's Deadline and Variety they were talking about. But he very intentionally was like, someone was like, we should make her a black woman. And I was like, God damn, y'all are just fucking smart. It says a lot, I think. Um, she has the resources of $1 billion international corporation at her fingertips. Yes, super important. And is not she's agnostic to using whatever kind of power she's got at her fingertips, which is fucked up too, because theoretically she's the smartest, as the smartest person on the planet. She could solve a lot of fucking problems. But her goal, I don't even know if she believes that having Homelander be the god in chief of the world is actually the right thing to do. But obviously it's the right thing to do to keep herself alive, right? She could solve so many fucking problems. Now she has Vought on her side. And I'm not saying she has to divert away from doing what Homelander wants, but like there's such thing as shell corporations. Just like fuck, get some money, implement your so is this really going back to the idea that Reed Richards could, completely make Earth a utopia, but he spends his fucking time fucking around in the negative zone and doing superhero shit? Tony Stark, like, you guys are super geniuses. Where is the utopia that we've been promised? Yeah, but those interviews are good. Kripke is he's got a really good handle. Now, obviously, great writing and all that, but he's got a good handle on the kind of the human situation, our political climate, how people are acting. I need to see who the other writers are on the show. Who's this writers room? But these guys are, they're not. It's Prescience is not it's not a good call. They're not Paul Atreides. I think it's not terribly difficult if you have a good understanding of the way people work and a decent understanding of politics to then make a reasonable prediction about what's going to happen, and then you make an allegory out of it, and you seem like you are Nostradamus. There was a comic where the Fantastic Four went to the future and Doctor Doom took over, and as it turned out, he was better for the planet than all superheroes. It was a great story. I don't know that I've read that, but I have heard of it. And yeah, that's sort of the whole Lex Luthor thing. If you've ever I feel like you probably have read All-Star Superman, but if you haven't, absolutely get on it. But that's literally what Clark said. He's dying. Lex sets him up to die. And so he's going to take him a year to die. And he's going and, kind of doing everything he needs to do. And one of the things he says to Lex is, all right, you win. I'm going to die. You're rich. You've got all the power. You've been raging at me for years that I'm what's in the way of you saving the planet. Go forth. And he can't set aside his bullshit, his vendetta, whatever the fuck you want to call it, to just be the savior of the planet that he says he wants to be. And so, I think that's very instructive about how superheroes they're pecking at, or whatever, they're what do we call it, Tylenol or ibuprofen or painkillers when you've got a broken arm. They've got the power to set the arm, right? But they're giving you, instead of solving the underlying problem, they are just giving you painkillers to sort of numb the pain. That to me is Batman. That's Spider-Man. And to be fair to Spider-Man, He's just a dude. He can't fix social problems or anything like that. But Doctor Doom being like, well, I know what's best for the world. And then this alternate future, he does know what's best for the world and everything's dope. All right. Like, it really makes you wonder about these heroes. Like, obviously, it's a storytelling trope just to continue to sell issues. But somebody like Dr. Manhattan, who is like, actually, I can solve all the world's problems. Let me start doing it. And the world, no, it doesn't necessarily solve the problems because, and it's because he's inhuman at that point. So he doesn't actually understand the human condition really. But somebody like Reed Richards or Doctor Doom does, and they have the power. Why don't they? Did they make an animation out of all? Yes, they did. There's an All-Star Superman animated movie. And I own it. I don't remember. I know I've watched it, but I don't remember much about it. As usual with these animated adaptations, comics better. It's because it has more time to say what it has to say. But it's a great story overall. I think it's worth checking out. What was I was talking about Homelander. That was actually I was actually sort of wrapping up. I'm sorry you came in a far into what I was talking about, but it's like Homelander. He's so goddamn. Those scenes are so hard to watch. Like I'm not kidding. It's not like I have a problem with horror or anything, but it's the sudden burst of violence aspect that keeps me on edge. And so, like even with like the most recent Halloween movies, because they have a tendency to have Michael Myers just like jump off a scene as if he teleported. And so it kind of fucks with my ability to watch the scenes, but masterfully done. Anthony Starr is, my God, it's a crime that he hasn't been, he hasn't gotten an Emmy for his portrayal. And I want to see if the TV Academy is going to continue to be full of shit this year. What do you think about the Starlight story? It made sense to me. With an understanding that Sage was playing her from the beginning. Like she's playing 3D chess. Everyone else is playing checkers. So she's been maneuvering Starlight into this for a while. And she even mentioned it, like the whole rage farming and all that other shit on social media, trying to figure out what best way to kind of work the angle. And it was awesome. I've not seen Banshee. I've heard that. There's a lot of shit I need to watch. I really do need to follow through on watching these things. But the whole Starlight thing, like I said, it made sense to me. It's again, this whole show is just our world with some capes on it. A little bit. Somebody threw some capes onto our situation, but it makes sense to me. Starlight having a personal, making a personal decision that makes sense for her. It's something that everyone can understand, but because the whole abortion issue is it's not just polarized. It has been sort of polarized to the point of being a parody of itself. And so it's so black and white for some people for no good reason. Sorry, I got a notification. No, so it should be a nuanced conversation, but Fox News or Vault News doesn't do nuance, especially when they can use it as a weapon against somebody. So, obviously they were going to go that angle, and Sage knew that. And also, she knows what kind of red meat that audience likes, and Firecracker's the best one to deliver it. And so, yeah, it was cathartic to see her get her ass whooped. But in the midst of it, you're just like, you're on camera, right? And also, am I wrong for thinking like, why the fuck ain't Starlight in jail? She literally beat the shit out of somebody on TV in the middle of New York. Why the fuck aren't you in jail? It's kind of ridiculous. Again, plot armor, but she should be in jail. They went in and arrested those two black dudes for the deaths of those Starlighters. I mean, of those Homelanders of Todd. It took them no time, but Annie's literally walking free, feeling sorry for herself. Thought that was interesting. I mean, you could be like, well, Firecracker's not pressing charges. My ass. You don't need anybody to press charges for the police to be like, I see a crime, let's go arrest somebody for it. So it's okay. I get it. It's a storytelling thing, but it doesn't make any damn sense. But of course, she plays right into Sage's hands. I also love the fact that that whole setup was literally payback. Like I said, I think I said on Threads, it's Sage dealing with two ops at the same time, and that's because they may be on the same side, but Sage does not like Firecracker. She's a convenient means to an end. This is all about executing the plan that she needs. So she needs to galvanize the base that Firecracker. That's why she's even there. Which also, I don't know why I just clocked the whole Firecracker name. Why am I just now getting this? I feel like I understand this shit, and then I'll be like, wait a minute. Why is her name Firecracker? Just shit is intentional. There's the thing is, I didn't know that Sage was going to care about race that much, about her place as a black. Like you would think, yeah, she's smart enough to know what matters, but I was wondering if she was buying into this whole "we're not human, we're soups, and it matters." I was wondering if she, maybe it doesn't matter a whole lot, but it matters enough that whole calling her up, saying she thought she was uppity, and then calling her one of the good ones, is just kind of. I said this earlier in the stream that it was, what's her name, Firecracker. She shouldn't even be on the fucking 7. She's only there. She is a quota higher if there ever was one. She's literally just there. You know how they're like, well, we have this one token black character so we can get the black audience. She's the one token character, or the one token person of the 7 to get that that far right audience. She definitely is. So out of the two of them, between the two of them, Sage should be there because she literally is the most capable fucking person there. Firecracker is there as a quota higher to get a certain demographic. She's also next to Deep's the stupider person, but she's not exactly the smart person on the team. And her powers are garbage. She doesn't even have good powers. Yeah, I'm sorry. Look, I'll be reading it. Look, I can admit I'll miss shit sometimes. I just like Firecracker. Okay, this is a race thing. All right, I see they be on some shit. I didn't see somebody rolled up. Kaiwan Calendar. Hello, welcome. Whoever were them or libertarian the last 3 seasons is gone, and now the shows are very libertarian. Their views not very. That's very anti-Trump. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying that the show is a libertarian, or are you saying that the characters in the show are libertarian? Maybe give me something there. But yeah, what I was getting at was she's a soup, but I don't know if she necessarily buys this "we're not human" thing, because pretty clearly there's always going to be hierarchies amongst any group. So I wonder if she's clocking whether or not, when the whole everything shakes out, it'll still be, oh, but you're a black soup. So like, I'm curious. It doesn't terribly matter, but like I said, Firecracker, she's, she thinks she's better than Sage, which is fucking ridiculous. It's pretty like, shit, for whatever reason, like maybe she just doesn't know that Sage picked her specifically to be on the team. She thinks that Homelander did it maybe because he agrees with her. Homelander doesn't give a fuck about what she has to say. He only cares about the means to an end. And what the end is Soup being in charge of the world and him being in charge of the Soups. And Sage looks at it the very same way. You're a means to an end. You aren't actually qualified to be on the 7, but you're a useful idiot. But she thinks that she earned her spot. She thinks she's there because she's worthy, and she thinks she's better than Sage. And that's where that whole uppity thing came in. And I just love that she was like, well, how about that for uppity? And I was like, oh, you set her up to get her ass whooped purposely. That's a good read of two people that you don't like. So it's, look, she's playing our enemies against each other, which leads me to think that she's probably going to deal with Firecracker in the future. She's useful for now, but when she's not, who's going to get their head lasered off after having been set up? So I still don't understand what was being said by Kawan Calendar, but the show is clearly I don't understand why people don't know this. It said Kripke literally said this shit he said this shit last season. Toasty MM, how you doing? Welcome in. Glad to have you. We're kind of in the discussion phase. I spent a lot of the time just kind of going over my thoughts, but I want to hear what you guys have to think about it. But it's so weird to me. And I think what's weird, what's really weird? Go look up on Google and look up the boys review bombing. They review bombed the last season, apparently. I missed that shit. I don't remember it, but apparently it happened. But they review bombed this one, and there's this big to-do about, apparently, now the right is realizing it's, because Kripke said it straight out, like, yeah, we're very specifically making out Homelander is a Trump analogy, and, they, in this season, I was saying earlier, the writing was easy this season, because all they really had to do was just go take a picture of the real world and just, recreate that picture. Like, go to one of these weird ass conspiracy theory conventions, just put their exact words up and see if they recognize it. And they lack self-awareness that they're finally fucking, oh, wait a minute. I said shit like that. Yeah, they've been doing that for fucking years. What are you doing? Yeah, they can be mad, and they're like, I'll never watch. I think somebody posted on Threads, they were like, oh, it's a gone woke. I'm gonna go put my Funko Pops in a bonfire, even though I spent lots of time collecting them. And I'm just like, okay, well, it's your money, I guess. Like, this performative outrage is bullshit. And these are the same people that talk about like diversity hires and virtue signaling. Well, that's the biggest motherfucking virtue signal possible. I'm gonna go shoot up some Bud Light. I'm gonna call them freedom fries. I'm gonna pour out the French wine. It's all performative bullshit. You have to buy that stuff. This ain't the Boston Tea Party where you steal shit. You bought it. All right, cool. It's your money. Do what you want. It's performative outrage. And look, the left does this shit too. I get annoyed as fuck sometimes on Threads seeing people just like, it's a bunch of performative shit. To me, what matters less is, how outwardly you're looking, and it's more important about what you're actually doing. Words are cool, and taking a selfie at a fucking rally, good for you. Or taking a selfie with a Palestinian flag or an Israeli flag. Does it, the only aspect of that matters is it makes people in your echo chamber feel like there's more of you than there are. Well, that's the only thing that matters about that in terms of being performative. But it doesn't, and Ideological consistency. What's that? Maybe Kid Rock will fire at his collection. I wish I wish he'd fire at all his shit albums, but whatever. I don't like Kid Rock. Fuck that guy. And I didn't like him. See, I was on the fuck Kid Rock train before I found out he was a MAGA head. So I thought he was garbage before that. So I'm sorry if you like his music, but I think it's trash. But that's just the shit. Like you're talking about, virtue signaling on their part. And I do like that this show is showing the virtue signaling of all. Like Vought, Vought is always in on the whole. They play, what they call it. They play both sides. I'm sure they got a great Pride selection. They did the whole thing with Maeve. It's all, it's all a lampooning of this corporate bullshit allyship, fake ass allyship. I was F Kid Rock back in middle school. Shit, yeah. I think he was big. He became big. I was in my early 20s at the time. So I've just been like, who the fuck is this dude with trash lyrics and generic rock music? All right, cool, whatever. Y'all, I guess have at it, but it's just garbage to me. If he played his own music, I like it, but he steals other people's music. Yeah. His most popular song, the one that I can't fucking escape if I'm on the radio, which is I never listen to the radio, but I can't escape it. And whenever radio is played, is that fake ass Sweet Home Alabama song, whatever the fuck it's called, garbage. Yes, in rap they do that too, but at least they have the good sense to make it better. This was like he wasn't even rapping; he was just singing some shit lyrics. So, but I don't want to spend a ton of time shitting on him. I love shit on him for his dumbassery. Just like I said, all the virtue signaling. It's so funny that virtue signaling is bad unless it's your guy doing the thing you like. But that is sort of the way it is with the right wing. It's we saw it in this episode. The rules for thee, but not me. The firecracker knowing, look, I groomed and fucked the 15-year-old. No one's going to care about that, even though my whole platform is Starlight's a groomer and she's setting up, trafficking and all this. That's her whole thing. And she knew for certain that all it would take is I made a mistake, God gave me, and also Starlight had an abortion. And it's all gone away. They don't care. I wish people would understand that. They do not care about ideological consistency. They don't care about moral consistency. They don't care about, conforming to any of the rules in the Bible unless they can use it as a bludgeon against somebody else. These rules aren't a way to live. They are a weapon formed against other people. So good on you if you're like, I live my values. Congratulations. And I hope they make you a better person. But most people don't, or at least most of these people don't. And they will set them aside in the interest of power or nominally having some power. Because there's this weird, I think a lot of supporters of most political supporters, but this is particularly bad on the right, is they think that there's a fucking transitive property of power and prestige. If Trump gets power, by the transitive property, I have power, right? If, and in some ways, sure, as long as what you want doesn't conflict with what he wants. Trump could give a fuck about abortion. He doesn't. He's an old man. What the fuck he care? He doesn't care about that. And Homelander is a good analogy because Homelander doesn't give a fuck about that stuff either. He doesn't care. He wants to be in charge. Trump doesn't care about the Bible. Doesn't care about your factory closing and you losing your job. He doesn't care. All he cares about is, how do I use that to push me up? I think the American president is like most. I forget the guy that wrote it, but the guy that wrote created the West Wing. He wrote the American President. He wrote a good monologue about how they just want to tell you about, you know, what the problem is and who to blame for it, and it's true, right? And the only point is to gain power. So once you understand and put that into your mind, it's really easy to see the angles. The angle is always going to be, well, he's he's on the right wing. He's constantly bashing Hillary or Biden or Obama or AOC. He's always sticking it to the libs. He's owning the libs. Therefore, it's fine if he grooms somebody. We forgive him, because what's important is that we win, not that we are consistent with our values. And the same person that is factually pointed out to have this problem will turn around and talk about grooming, somebody else doing grooming. That's the shit we're talking about. They will turn around and say the same things. You've heard people say, well, don't point fingers because, you got three pointing back at you. They don't care about that, because you need to be able to feel shame for hypocrisy to matter. And you don't feel shame when all you give a fuck about is power. It's just the truth. So I've long since come to, accept that that's the way it is, which is why I get really fucking annoyed with people being like, look at them being hypocrites. All you're doing is playing to people that already agree with you. Look at them being hypocrites. They don't care. They could care less. Hypocrisy does not work on them. Works on us because, almost 20 years ago, we listened to somebody, and I think it was Michelle Obama, but she was just parroting some other shit that was said by the DNC types. When they go low, we go high. And look where that got us. I'm more of I heard Shannon Sharp say this, but I know this isn't his. When they go low, we go to the fucking, we go to the below them. If, we go to the basement. If they go to the basement, we go to hell. Because this is look, we're in the world. I think the Boys does a good job of kind of illustrating the life or death stakes of things. And look, I'm in America. This is a first world country. It's not going to be the fucking Hunger Games. It's not going to be fucking Handmaid's Tale probably in my lifetime. I probably got about a good 40 years left if I'm lucky. Probably not in my lifetime, but it's not going to be that. But the life or death situation is illustrated in The Boys a lot more starkly, because Homelander is a world-ending problem. But it's true that the situation is very dire, and this whole standing on principle shit, like you're too good to get in the dirt, is gonna see the other side win, because they're not, and it fucking works. Like, I don't understand this whole continuing to do things that don't work. I'm like, well, at least I have my principles. What fucking good is that gonna do when your life and the lives of people that you care about are being fucking ruined by people who have no principles except power? You gotta fucking do what you can to get. You can debate morals in retrospect. This is why I also sympathize with, like, because we sympathize with, like, during World War II, you have freedom fighters, right? We call them freedom fighters. They were terrorists. Let's be honest. They were terrorists. They did terrorist shit. They killed people. They killed people who were collaborators. They killed collaborators whose whole thing was, look, I got to survive this war. Let's just work with these guys. They killed Nazi collaborators. Can we admit that? They were terrorists. And you know, there were occupiers. They did anything they could to fucking weaken the Nazis, to get at them. Anything, right? And so this whole I can't get in the dirt to deal with an existential threat thing is really fucking weird to me. Because, like, the other side is not, they're not playing. They very much mean to do that Project 2025 shit. And in the world of the boys, they very much mean to install soups all over the world, all over the country, and to terrorize humans and to use them like Sabanur did in, you know, if Apocalypse did in ancient Egypt, to build monuments to himself. They very much mean to do that. And if you're too fucking good to get your hands dirty, then just go fucking walk into the camp. Because that's where it's headed. That's where you're going to be headed. If you're too good to do what's necessary. And I know people don't like to talk about shit like that and talk about it that way. But it is what it is. Like, you can't be playing a different game that the other person is. This game is being played. You can't be playing by super special house rules when the other side is playing by the rules and ignoring your stupid house rules. Anyway, I'm torturing that analogy. The point is, this show is dope. Episode 4 was great. It was really hard to watch the Homelander stuff. Yeah, that's... I don't know if I have too much else to add unless you had something else woke AF. Or, I don't know who's still here, to be honest. Because it doesn't list people. It just whoever says stuff in the chat. But it's... Look, I'm looking forward to the next episode very much. Let me ask, you know, everyone who's still here. Does Butcher have a superpower? Is V still giving him a superpower? And is it exploding soups? Let me see. Actually, you know what? Why am I just not in this? So I should just be the... I don't know why I'm just doing this in OBS. So I can tell I barely know what I'm doing as far as live streaming. So it says I have 2 live viewers. If y'all, I mean, I feel like he's got a superpower, and it's probably the Chekhov's gun here that they're eventually going to use to kill Homelander. We'll see. So I don't know if y'all had any more thoughts or questions or anything else you just wanted to say, because I've been going almost 2 hours now, and my voice is good, but 2 hours is a lot of time to talk. So otherwise, if y'all, you know, I'm gonna give you a minute to maybe chime in. If not, I will probably go ahead and sign off. So, but thanks for showing up. Let's see. I will shout out everyone who said something. Toasty MM, Kaiwan Calendar, Woke AF. Thanks for a lot of, you know, having a lot to say, giving me something to say. I don't know if this time is great for people, but it's kind of convenient for me. But I may see about changing it to a different time over the next few weeks. Also, my work schedule permitting, because as far as I know, I have Fridays off, but who knows? I don't know if that's always going to be true. But anyway, if nobody else has anything else to say, thanks for showing up. Probably this time next week, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you know, do me a favor, subscribe. If you haven't liked this video, also do me a favor and like the video. That would be dope. And go check out some content on BLERD FORCE 1. I'd really appreciate it. I think I'm nearing 400 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. So anyway, with that being said, we'll see you guys next week. All right. I've been Mo. See you guys on this side of the thread.